Hello, this is Paul Smith. I'm Education Development Manager here. So Great Science Share is run by children for children effectively. The primary schools will decide what activities they're actually going to do, and they'll collaborate as a group. So you get groups of children who generally the teachers seem to pick, and they'll come out and they'll work in one of our spaces and they'll demonstrate what they've done. And that's the idea. The children actually show you what they have been doing in science. The lab space, very similar to a school. This is our main teaching lab. It's set out for primary kids, which is an issue because if you get a class of secondary age children in it, they fill it up and they're too big for the desks. But it's a beautiful space. It's good for small groups. We run adult groups there as well. So that's one of the issues we run into, is getting the secondary schools out. You have to have something on site that they are not going to get. Because as soon as you get them out for science, then you're going to end up with people saying, oh, you're missing English or maths classes. So when we do activities, we always try and get them as far as possible in the Great Glass House, because it's an iconic space and it makes fantastic photos and it gives them something to remember. So for the Great Science Share, the way that we tagged on to get the local secondaries in is that we were looking at women and girls into STEM. So we tried to skew as many as possible of the participants to be scientists who were female, and if they spoke Welsh, absolutely brilliant. So the last one we ran, we got Dr. Helen Mason, who's an astrophysicist and an OBE from Cambridge. She brought her husband, Dr. John Dudney, who was a famous polar explorer. The year before, we used Dr. Susie Imber from Leicester University, who won the So You Want to Be an Astronaut competition. We use our local university, so we go in there and we say, right, we need some outreach. We had Sarah Roberts, who's an astrophysicist from Swansea University, who showed how to model asteroids using potatoes. We use Emma Ryde, who works for Astro Cymru, which is a Welsh space exploration activity. Kerry and Ann Garrard from the Institute of Physics. Joel Loveridge, a chemist from Swansea University who loves doing practical activities. We used an organisation called Specific, which is to do with active buildings, Dr. Chris Weirman. We used the Institute of Civil Engineers. They have a huge big suspension bridge that they can bring out, which you'll build on site. We used Cindy Howells from Cardiff Museum, who's really interested in flying dinosaurs. We'll use anyone that we can think of that will give something different. And then when we put the day plan together, we skew the secondary students to make sure that they are seeing the higher level activities. We also use our own students. We've got PhD students and public delivery people here, and we'll plug in the activities there. So in the morning, the people will see the scientists doing their work and go and interview them and chat to them, and we'll timetable all of this. And then in the afternoon, the scientists will then go and talk to the children. With the secondary, we made sure that they got to meet sort of the more exciting and interesting people who are supposedly going to inspire them into a life of science. We also work a lot with home educators. We've now got 171 families on roll from the Home Education Network. They are really, really keen on anything, especially science and maths orientated, because it's so difficult for them to do that. So to do with this, we're opening up as an exam centre as well. It's taken a long time, so that should be up and running by November, obviously depending what's happening with exams across the UK there. But the home education sector is well worth getting into, and they cover a huge age range. And in the first Great Science Share, my favourite bit of that was this girl, I think she was 7 or 8, and she'd grown a big collection of slime moulds. No one knew what they were, and she was very shy and wouldn't talk to anyone, but she had loads of slime moulds in Petri dishes, and they were absolutely fantastic. Now the other things that we have, we've got some lab space, which means that you can access different kinds of activities, because believe it or not, secondary school kids hardly ever get time to access labs. The practicals are normally the prescribed practicals, which they have to do for their qualifications. They just don't have time, which is really, really sad. So you've got to put something out there that is going to be different, that they're not going to get when they're in school, because the schools won't release them. And it's really difficult to get the secondary schools out. They haven't got much money and they haven't got much time. But That's a challenge and it's worth rising up to. Anyway, any questions, please ask me afterwards. Thanks very much. Cheers, bye.